Deleted episode of Peppa Pig, The Attic Mystery. It all started as an ordinary day. Peppa, George, and Mummy Pig were preparing homemade treats in the kitchen, while Daddy Pig fixed an old television in the living room. Cheerful music played, creating a cozy atmosphere. Peppa decided to play hide-and-seek with George. She shouted,
"I'm counting to 10.
And closed her eyes. George quickly ran to hide behind the sofa, trying not to make any noise. Peppa began searching for George. She looked under the table, behind the sofa, and even inside the closet, but he was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, she remembered the old attic ladder they had never used before.
Maybe he's hiding up there."
Thought Peppa, feeling her heart beat faster. She quietly approached the door leading to the attic and noticed it was slightly open. Inside was dark, and a sharp smell of dust hit her nose. Peppa hesitated, but curiosity overcame her fear. She began cautiously climbing the ladder. A faint light seeped through a small light bulb. Peppa took a few steps forward when her foot brushed against something soft. She bent down and found George's doll, but with a distorted face, as if someone had mutilated it. A cold shiver ran down Peppa's spine.
"George, are you here?"
She called out, but only a faint echo responded. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise, like someone whispering from the darkness. Peppa turned around but saw no one. Her heart pounded faster and she decided to go back. But halfway down the ladder, she heard children's laughter echoing as if coming from deep within the attic. The laughter grew louder and louder, and overwhelmed by fear, Peppa grabbed the door handle. When she returned home, Mummy and Daddy noticed her frightened face.
"Where's George?"
asked Mummy Pig, but Peppa only shook her head. At that moment, a sound came from inside the house, like someone knocking from behind the wall.
"That's George!"
exclaimed Peppa, and without waiting for her parents, she rushed back to the ladder. She saw George's doll lying on the floor next to an old, worn-out diary. Peppa opened it and found entries about how some children had gone missing in this house many years ago. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut behind her, leaving Peppa alone in the darkness. She heard a raspy voice coming from behind the walls.
"Peppa, I found you. Now you're part of our game."
Deleted episode of Peppa Pig. On the other side, it was an ordinary day.
Wow!
Grandpa brought the family an old television. It looked strange, but it immediately turned on. It was showing memories, happy and familiar. But sometimes there was something extra in these scenes. At night, Peppa woke up to a strange crackling sound. The TV turned on by itself. It showed Mom, but with eyes that looked empty, erased, just for a second. In the morning, the scene repeated. Only Peppa noticed. During the day, everything seemed normal. No one believed Peppa's stories. A little later, she saw Daddy Pig. He wasn't blinking. He was just staring.
"See, Daddy, you see? Something's wrong."
Daddy Pig monotonously replied, "We've all been here before." Peppa searched for an explanation. With each day, everything in the house became stranger. Peppa whispered,
"Mom?"
She answered emotionlessly.
Don't look for too long, Peppa. You'll see too much.
Daddy disappeared. The screen hummed as if it knew this would happen. Peppa decided to act. She pulled at the TV cord, but it sank into the floor and disappeared. The TV had never been plugged in, never before. Now it showed only fear and nothing else. On the screen, family members without faces, Peppa inside it. She screamed but made no sound. Peppa tore off George's toy hammer and struck the TV. The screen cracked. From inside, thick black liquid flowed out. Something unpleasant and dark seeped outward. The TV was gone, but distorted reflections remained. Some things don't turn off, even if the screen is no longer there. Deleted Peppa Pig episode. The ominous shadow. It was an ordinary day. Fun and laughter playing with George. Giggles and mischief. But suddenly, Peppa noticed something strange. Her shadow on the wall was moving out of sync with her. The shadow was distorted.
George, do you see this?
It's just the light, Peppa, he replied, not paying attention. But Peppa couldn't shake her unease. During the night, she heard footsteps. The shadow was alive again, moving on its own. Suddenly, it grabbed Peppa's hand and led her in an unknown direction. They found themselves in a dark forest. Gloom blocked out every ray of sunlight. Peppa's heart clenched. She saw a whole kingdom of shadows before her. They whispered, "You can't escape." Peppa felt doomed. Just as the shadows began to surround her, she heard George's voice. "Peppa, hold on!" George took out a mirror that his mom had once given him with the words,
One day it will save your life.
The shadows froze, and their reflections started to be drawn into the mirror, pulling them into the looking glass realm. They screamed and struggled as they vanished without a trace into the mirror abyss.
We're saved!
Peppa exclaimed, hugging George with relief. The world returned to normal again, but somewhere in the darkness, deep within the forest, a mysterious whisper could be heard. Peppa and George were playing hide and seek. Just like always, George chose a cozy spot, a little further than usual. Peppa was walking through an empty hall. The house seemed frozen in time. George was hiding well, too well. Mommy Pig was washing the dishes, but her movements were a bit slowed down.
Mommy, George isn't coming out!
He always plays like that.
Peppa felt the presence of something supernatural. The wardrobe where George was hiding was now closer than before. George was always nearby, but he wasn't here. The game of hide and seek had long since crossed into another realm. Peppa approached the window. There was George. He was outside, looking at Peppa and trying to get her attention. Turning around, Peppa noticed that George was also inside. She went outside. The yard was empty. The grass was pressed down, as if someone had just left. But now, in the window, there was her, the one who hadn't come out. Peppa decided to go back home. The door creaked as if someone was pulling it at the same time she did. Something in the house had changed, like it was shrinking. The wardrobe remained, but it no longer hid anything. Peppa entered the kitchen. George sat with his back to her at the table. He was waiting, but something was wrong. His face was blurred. He whispered,
You lose. The game was over.
but had it ever really begun?
White is cleaner. It reveals the truth.
Today at school, a new room was announced. Her creator had something in mind. Danny was the first to enter. After some time, he came out. His face was blurred like a washed-out watercolor drawing. Black paint dripped from the holes where his eyes and mouth should have been.
It's very fun.
He said mechanically. Suddenly, a line formed. After a few days, the children's mouths disappeared. Their clothes faded to dusty gray. The children were losing their faces. Peppa was flipping through a notebook. Black, distorted faces flickered on the pages as if screaming. Suddenly, tentacles burst out of the paper and grabbed her by the arm. A burn remained on her skin. The room left traces. No one erased them. Peppa tried to preserve the colors, but the room kept erasing everything. The next day, all the students turned to Peppa in unison, with wide, identical smiles, and said in chorus,
White is cleaner. It reveals the truth.
Now, it's her turn. Ahead is light that blinds thoughts. There's no way back. From the walls slowly emerged white silhouettes with distorted features, and black handprints appeared on the surfaces. They watched, they waited. Night fell. Peppa stood in the center of the white room. With trembling hands, Peppa wrote, Yellow light, laughter, I. She tried to remember, but words no longer meant anything. She was the last. Silence remained, and Peppa, who no longer remembered anything. In the evening, Peppa went home, but the road veered off to the side. She saw familiar faces, Susie, Rebecca, Denny, and new ones, pale and motionless. In the center of the circle, a puddle of black liquid reflecting the sky, but distorted. They stood silently, waiting. Peppa slowly approached. Susie turned her head abruptly without blinking, her eyes empty sockets, a black drop at the corner of her mouth. All the children simultaneously turned their heads toward Peppa, synchronously, faces devoid of emotion. The puddle in the center of the circle pulsed, gentle ripples emanating from it. Peppa stepped back. The children reached their hands out at the same time, their fingers elongated, black liquid flowing from them. The children's mouths opened to an unnatural width, but silently. The puddle in the center suddenly stretched upward, forming a black tentacle reaching toward Peppa. Peppa ran. When she looked back, everything had disappeared. But it was worse. Numerous trails of black slime led in different directions. Some led to Peppa's gate. Someone left with her, or followed her. Midnight, Peppa sat on her bed, drawing a circle in her notebook. A shadow near the door began to change. It was the silhouette of one of the children from the circle. Beyond the door, the park. That very park. Children in a circle. She was among them, standing hand in hand with the others. If Peppa isn't with them, then who is in the circle? Her eyes became as empty as Susie's. She slowly smiled. Suddenly, a face, blurred, eye sockets empty, mouth twisted into a grin, black liquid dripping, darkness flooding everything. You are already standing in the circle. You just don't know it yet.